Hey guys, I was potentially just going to kind of procrastinate on this video for a few different reasons. One, I haven't showered today. Two, I wanted to record it. I have something scheduled in a few weeks with a video content producer. So I intend to record a bunch of videos for my YouTube channel with meditations, mental health conversations, all that kind of stuff. So I was gonna put it off till then. Or at the very least, like I said, till I showered. But then I realized how absurd that is. I have something to share, and perhaps it might help somebody, so why not just share it? I wanted to talk about suicide. It's something that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also the month where 5 years ago I lost my father to suicide. So it's something that's fortunately more and more talked about. Unfortunately, it's more talked about now because suicide is affecting virtually everyone's community in one way, shape, or form. But very often things have to come to a head before we're willing to address them. And so the thing that I wanted to address today is the misunderstanding of suicide. It's more often than not misunderstood, but it's really quite simple. In the same way your heart can become diseased, whether that's an inherited trait or it's just due to neglect of your physical health, that disease of the heart under a certain amount of stress can result in a heart attack. The same thing is true of the brain. It can become diseased, whether that's an inherited trait or the result of neglect to your mental health or a combination of the two. But in any case, under a certain amount of stress, that disease can result in suicide or an attempt at suicide. In both cases, an organ of the body simply malfunctions. However, herein lies the misunderstanding. In reality, the heart attacks and the brain attacks. There's no difference. But the misunderstanding is that in suicide, there's some sort of conscious choice in the matter, rather than it being the result of a disease. This was certainly my misunderstanding for a large portion of my life. As most of you know, 5 years ago I lost my dad to suicide, and before that time I was ignorant to mental illness. Even though I was experiencing depression and anxiety, I was definitely ignorant to suicide. In fact, anytime I heard the word suicide, I immediately thought guilt. That individual felt guilty about something, and so they consciously chose to end their life. But nothing could have been further from the truth, as I learned through the experience with my father. So 5 years ago, he passed away from suicide, and for the 12 months prior, he was battling clinical depression, and this, for me, was an education. I was able to see up close and personal the disease of depression. I was able to witness and watch the love and light within my father that had shined so bright for so long, scratching and clawing to come to the surface underneath this veil of depression. The disease just growing day by day. My father's perception becoming more and more distorted as his brain just degenerated. This was the ugliest and most painful experience of my life, but it was also the most enlightening experience of my life. I learned without a shadow of a doubt that mental illness was indeed an illness and not a weakness. It wasn't some character flaw. It was a disease, and suicide was simply the result of that disease. As I recognized the disease, the illness in my father, I started to recognize it in myself, and this changed everything for me. It changed how just the fact that I started to talk openly and honestly about it. When I thought it was a weakness, I had to hide it from everyone, certainly hide it from myself as best I could, and absolutely hide it from all of you. But in understanding that it was an illness, I could start to speak openly and honestly about it. And then also understanding it as an illness, as a disease, it was something that I could then look into learning how to better cope with, or maybe even to heal. And that understanding is what drew me naturally to meditation and mindfulness. So anyway, I just wanted to address suicide and the inherent misunderstandings, and my hope is that we can let go of those misperceptions of generations past and instead embrace the truth with open and honest dialogue and compassion for one another.